Okay, at the request of the board, we put together just a brief slideshow, kind of informative, and some of the information will be duplicative to what anyone at the Q&A rezoning hearings might have seen. I'm going to show you some colorized zoning maps, talk about the different uses that are and aren't allowed in particular in the districts that are affected or in the vicinity of the Q&A landscaping property. So what you have on the screen in front of you right now is a colorized version of our zoning map. To orient you here, this is Brownsville Road right here. This is Route 88 right down here. Of course, the intersection would come together right there. Couple points that I want to highlight out. This shows the current zoning configuration, what's going on up here right now. This, what you see in green, is the SD district with an MUD overlay. Now, SD stands for special development. MUD stands for mixed use development. SD, by the ordinance, was established over various areas of the township that were things such as mine refuse areas, ash flash piles, different just portions of the township that were of that character. The MUD, created at some point in time, is only an overlay that's allowed in those SD areas. And the MUD allows for mixed-use development. In particular, my opinion is I think it was probably established to encourage redevelopment and reclamation of those nastier areas of the township, such as the coal refuse area. So you would recognize this site because this is where the Advanced Auto Parts is. This is where there's an indoor recreation facility up there right now. Of course, a lot of this property here was and kind of still is some of the old Goonie piles from when this was a coal refuse area. So that's the green area right here. Now you'll see this pink area of C2. So a lot of this happened about the same time. This area got, the MUD got expanded in here to the limits of basically that coal refuse area. DCS Acquisitions property over here. This is the Union Gardens property, rezoned C2. Of course, you've heard some talk about that as well. Then to move on a little farther, let's see if I come down this way. This area right now, it's labeled C2, but this is actually RD. You'll see it in pencil in there, Scarmazy PRD. This is Highland Village. So this was originally C2, was rezoned RD to allow their residential plan to go in. Tractor Supply was just shown, will be down here in the C2 district along Route 88. Now, Sean, if you flip to the next slide, little red line that I drew around it, and this is approximately the area the Q&A is looking at. And if you attended any of the hearings, you know that there are currently 3 zoning districts that Q&A owns. There's the RD portion right here, which is about 40% of the property, the R1 and the R3. Now, what the board's going to have in front of them tonight, I believe, will be a decision on this rezoning. So I'll flip to the next slide, which will be to zone that C2 if they so choose. That's what the applicants requested. So this entire area right here will now be a contiguous C2 district. So just to kind of show that on a map, so folks who maybe weren't at the hearings but are here at tonight's meeting, the board asked me to present this to you. Now the next thing I want to go to, if we can flip to the next slide. You got it, Bobby? He asked me just to talk through some of the uses that are allowable in the 3 districts that are on Q&A property right now, RD, R1, R3. So in yellow, I'm just going to read off those uses that are allowed right now. Then I'll come back through again and I'll talk about C2. What you see in blue are those things that are allowed in C2. Now some of them, such as an animal hospital, permitted use in RD, also a special exception in C2. So I'm not going to go back and double up. I'll just tell you the blue ones that are C2 when we come back through. So there's 3 types of uses, and just to kind of give you a little more information, there's a permitted use, a conditional use, and a special exception. All of these are technically permitted uses. You just have to go through different procedures to get them approved. If you see an N on this list, it's not permitted. No way, no how. But a P, a CU, and an SE, those are all permitted uses essentially. So I'm not going to make a distinction between them as we go through the list. So I'll read off this. Accessory uses customarily incidental to on the same lot with any permitted use, conditional use, or use by special exception authorized in the district. Agriculture, animal hospital, boarding stable. Next slide, please.
And Jamie, before you
Yes,
continue
ma'am.
further, this, what you're saying now is what currently could go in this proposed parcel in the RD district as it sits right now?
That's correct. So what I'm reading off this list right now is what's allowed in either of these three, RD, R1, R3, which is what that property currently is. There's pieces of it in each one, so any either one of these that I'm reading could go on a portion of that property. Continuing with that list, we've got cemetery, church, commercial communications tower, conversion apartment, daycare center or preschool facility in a church or school, essential services.
Excuse me, Jamie, can you define essential services?
Sure. Essential services, to give you the strict definition, I'd have to look at our zoning ordinance, but basically that's anything that is necessary for the protection of like life and the services and things you need to live your life. So that could be utilities, it could be expanded to things such as public safety, communications, essential services, or the stuff that our community needs as a whole to live our lives in an essential manner. Does that help?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Fences, firehouse, garden apartments, garden nursery, golf course, a group care facility.
Jamie, going back to garden apartments, is that, what type of apartment, are you familiar with?
Yeah, garden apartments are what you might see is like a multi-tenant building, large building with multiple apartments within that building that can be rented out, kind of surrounded by a common garden facility. Sometimes they're multi-story, sometimes they're single-story, but it's kind of a condensed housing scenario. At least those are the things that I've seen called garden apartments. Again, there's probably a definition in the ordinance we could look at,
Okay.
but I don't have that in the slideshow tonight. Picking up on the list, home gardening, a home occupation, a home office, keeping of domestic pets, a kennel, mineral removal, mini warehousing or self-storage buildings, a mobile home park, non-commercial recreation, a nursery or a greenhouse, a nursing home, oil and gas extraction, off-street parking and loading, personal care boarding home, planned residential development, private club, private garages and storage buildings, private residential swimming pools and tennis courts, private stables, private use helipad, public buildings, public recreation, public utility installation, retirement community, schools, signs, single family dwelling, temporary construction trailer, model home or sales office, temporary use structure other than a construction trailer, model home or sales office, townhouses, two-family dwelling, and I think that's the last slide on the zoning list. So to recap, those are all the listed uses that would be permitted naturally in one of those three zoning districts of the current property. Now, we're going to circle back to the very beginning of those slides, if I'll hit the up arrow and go back the other way. And I'm going to read off the blue, which are the additional uses that a C2 would allow. That's what, and again, this is much for the board's benefit as anyone else, so we've kind of got it all in front of us here. So in a C2 district, these are some additional uses that would be permitted: an apartment above office or retail, bakery, billboard, a business or professional office, business services, candy or ice cream store, well, I like that one, car wash, clinic, commercial recreation, commercial school, comparable uses not specifically listed, contracting business, convenience store, custom crafting, delicatessen, drive-in facilities, financial institutions, funeral home, health club, hospital, indoor amusement, laundry, dry cleaners, motel/hotel, personal services, pet grooming, pharmacy, public parking lot or garage, repair shop, restaurant, retail stores, service station, shopping centers, tavern, vehicle accessory sales and installation, vehicle rental, sales and service, vehicle repair garage. So again, the purpose of me sharing this, I believe, was just to give you an overview of what the zoning of that area looks like, the uses that are currently allowed in those districts, And then the C2 rezoning that's being considered by the board tonight, what that would add to or change as far as what's allowed on that particular property with respect to Q&A's request. Is there anything you'd like me to go back?
No,
and
that was perfect.
Thanks.
That was a good explanation, thank you. Jamie, do you or Sean have anything else on your engineering report?